everybody. So great to see you. Welcome, CIS. We're gonna give folks just one more minute, and we're gonna get started.
Tell him that was.
Getting ready for spawning. There we go. Oh, there we are. Look at that. Oh, wow. Wait,
Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. My name's Todd. I am a reef educator working on the Grouper Moon project, and today is our exciting underwater live stream. I'm so excited for you guys to see what we're gonna show you one of the most beautiful dive sites here in the Cayman Islands, and hopefully we're gonna see just tons of fish, and maybe we'll see a few of those grouper that just got finished spawning on the aggregation coming back to their home reefs. So let me just tell you a few things about what's going on. Pull up my notes. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here, and I especially want to thank your teachers. I know it's an extra ask to get you guys to make the time and come on here and make sure that your technology is working, and we just couldn't do it without all of your support. So thank you. I'm just turning down my volume. Does that sound okay? Give me a thumbs up if that sounds okay. Yeah? Okay. Wonderful. All right. So today we are streaming to you live from. Are we on Bloody Bay? No, we're on the south. So we're on the south end of Little Cayman at a dive site called the Black Hole. And in a few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to the crew that we have here that are going to be helping us do this live stream. So there's me, Todd. You guys, so good to see all of you that were here in earlier live streams. We also have Dr. Croy McCoy. You guys remember Dr. Croy McCoy from previous live streams. He's going to be helping today to answer questions. And currently, we have Dr. Bryce Simmons, who is, I'm about to bring him in here and show you. He has a special, it's called an AGA face mask. If any of you have seen divers before, you know you have to wear a regulator in your mouth, right? And that's what brings the oxygen from the tank into your mouth, and so that you can breathe. Well, we have to have a special face mask so that he can talk while he's underwater. And here he is. Can you guys say hi to Dr. Bryce Simmons?
Hi, my good friends. How are you?
Oh, hello.
I thought I could even hear you now. Hi, friends. I'm going to show you my mask I'm going to go down with. Obviously, I've got my scuba gear on my back so you can see my tank. That tank has my air that I'm going to be breathing when I'm underwater, and it's going to be connected to a regulator. A regulator makes the tank from my air go into my mask so I can breathe off of it. And I'm going to put that mask on, and I'm going to be talking to you. And inside this mask is a little microphone, and that's how you're going to be able to hear me while I'm doing my dive. So with that, I'm going to get the rest of my gear on and jump in the water. See you guys in a little bit.
All right. Can you hear me okay? No. All right. Okay. Are you able to hear me? Yes? Okay. Wonderful. Hi, everyone. Okay, so you just met Dr. Bryce Simmons. He's going to be the one that's talking to you on the underwater live stream. We have another scientist, Tom Spark, who is going to be working the camera so that you can see everything that's going on. And we have a number of other staff members that are going to be helping make everything work just right. Okay, so in about 30 seconds, we're going to see, I'm going to switch over to the underwater camera, and you're going to see Dr. Simmons jumping into the water, and then we're going to follow him down to the reef and see what's down there. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to switch over now. There we go. All right, can you see that? So now operating that camera is Tom Spark. He's underneath the boat right now, and in a second you're going to see Dr. Simmons jump in, and then we're going to descend down to the reef and see what we can see. It all looks great. Okay, I can see Dr. Simmons he's standing on the back of the boat, getting all of his gear together. And we have several other scientists helping us out today, including Dr. Scott Happel from Oregon State University. And maybe, hold on, I'm gonna give you to Dr. Croy McCoy, who's just gonna introduce the DOE staff that are on here, and you can just say their names. You don't need to do anything more than that. Just tell us who's on the boat.
Hi everyone. Go get Cody. We have with us here today Cody Panton, a research officer.
You can just tell their names. You don't have
And
to, we're on underwater.
he works with us at the DOA in multiple projects, but he also been working with me in the Group of One project for the last 10 years or more. And we also have our captain, Martins. He works in the back, but he works over in Little Cayman with us with the Group of One project this time of the year. And we also got Jonathan Rivers with us from over in Grand Cayman that also crews the boat to make this all work. It takes a lot of team effort to do all of this work, and that's what we are here to do. And including the live streaming that you're seeing today, it takes a whole team with the DOE and Reef to make it all come together to show you all some of the underwater wonders that these islands have. With that, I'm going to hand you over again to Todd.
Yeah. All right. Hold on one second. There's no signal. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now you can see, so that was Tom's hand right there, just testing the camera, and you can see Dr. Simmons right in front of the screen. Are you all, is the picture clear for you right now? Is it pixelated or is it looking okay? Yes. I'm going to turn. Bryce, you're looking good. Can you hear me, Bryce?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. I had you turned down, but now you're up.
Okay. All right.
All right, guys.
Hi, my good friends. How are you?
They're great. They're all waving at you. There's about 7 classrooms on right now, and they're all excited to see you.
I got to do jazz hands. Here you go.
So tell us where we are, Bryce.
Yeah, so we're on the south side of Little Cayman, right at the very shelf break. So island starts, and then the shelf, or the edge of the island, comes out into the water, and then about maybe 200 meters or so off of the shelf, off of the island, the shelf breaks.
Can you message?
And it drops deep. And we're right at the edge of that break right now, so if you look out there, you can see the deep blue. That's the open ocean.
That's amazing. You look incredible. The picture quality is perfect, Bryce.
That's great. So what's cool about right here is that because we are right at the very edge of the ocean, where the shelf breaks, the ocean crashes into the reef right here. And it brings all of the creatures and productivity and plankton right into the edge of the reef. And because of that, we get a lot of biodiversity. Lots of different creatures, animals, big and small, that all make use of that productivity, that ocean of food that crashes into the wall right here on the reef edge.
Hey Bryce, what are you holding on to? Why do you have that cable that your hand's on?
Yeah, sorry if this is in the way. This is
No, I just want you to explain,
Yeah, sure. So this cable right here goes all the way up to the boat and connects into the computer right where Todd is. And this is my audio link to you, so this is the reason you can hear me talk. Yeah, so this connects everything that I say and brings it right to you guys. Now, I'm going to see, I've seen already a bunch of NASA grouper. I know that this is the hero of our story is the NASA grouper, right? And
Right.
you can see one right down here. So if you want, we'll go see if we can get close to this guy. And if we can't get close to this one, he's not looking too friendly here. He's just moving. See him swimming down here?
What are we looking at, Bryce?
Yeah, this is a NASA grouper.
I see.
He's,
Oh, I'm starting to see him.
yeah, here he comes. We're going to try and get a little closer up here.
So do you think, Bryce, that the NASA are now starting to leave the aggregation and head back to their home reefs?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what this guy is doing, right? He's not sticking around right now. It's because he was all the way on the west end. Excuse me, I'm playing the wrong direction. It's that way. No, it's okay, Tom. This is good. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Todd, if you could turn up Tom's audio a little bit, he's having a hard time hearing me.
How's that?
Oh, that's perfect. Okay.
Great.
So as I was saying, these guys, they're moving right now. So they've probably finished spawning. They probably finished reproduction for the year. And so they're heading back to their home reefs right now.
Look at the image quality.
But as they move, they'll actually stop along the way. And they'll visit cleaning stations. Have you guys talked about cleaning stations yet?
We spoke briefly about it in the live stream, and I posted a clip about them last night on the blog. But maybe you could talk a little bit about how a cleaning station works and why they're so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, a cleaning station is a location where different types of reef animals, usually small ones like gobies and shrimps, they sit at, it's almost like a car wash. They'll sit in a location, and the bigger fish will pull up to that location, and the shrimps and the gobies will come out, and they'll start picking away at that fish, that big fish. In this case, a NASA grouper, and that's what he was doing right there, was at a cleaning station. Now, they're not hurting the fish, they're not eating the fish, they're actually cleaning the fish. They'll take all the dead pieces of skin, maybe some old mucus, even parasites, and they'll eat those things.
So, Bryce, is that normal for a fish to just build up that kind of dead skin and mucus and parasites in their day-to-day life?
Yeah, it sure is. Fish produce a mucus on their skin, and it protects them. It protects them from pathogens and bad things in the water. But they produce it constantly. And at some point, that mucus that they produced a while ago no longer has the benefits. And they need to get rid of it somehow. And cleaning stations are one way. And of course, it's really great when cleaning stations help to get rid of parasites. Hey, give us a little slack up top. You guys are pulling us up a bit.
They need a little bit of slack.
So parasites, of course, they're no good, right? Nobody wants a parasite. And when you pull up to a cleaning station as a big fish, those shrimps and gobies will pick those things off.
So what are we seeing right now, Bryce? I see just a ton of, stuff on the ground. There are corals and soft corals.
Yeah, so really pretty, right? The beautiful colors here of the reef. And what you're seeing on the ground here is a matrix of life. All kinds of different creatures and plants are all living right here. I'll just show you, for instance, Here's a couple of different kinds of coral. Here's coral right here. We don't touch it, of course. That's coral, and here's some coral right here.
Why don't we touch the coral, Bryce?
We try not to touch the corals because they're living creatures just like you and me. They kind of look like they might be a plant, but they're not. They're actually tiny colonial animals that create their own structure by making a skeleton that they all live on. And so we don't want to disturb those animals. We want to leave them be. Now, in addition to coral, you also have algae. So here's an example of some algae. This kind of fleshy stuff right here. And there's constant battle between algae and coral. There's competition for space, because as you look around, every inch of space on this reef is covered by something. And of course, we talk about healthy coral reefs, and that requires coral, right? Well, it turns out algae is better in general at competing for space. But it's better because it doesn't grow its own structure. Algae is also the preferred food of herbivores, like parrotfish. Oh, here's a parrotfish right here. This is a stoplight parrotfish. You see him? So those parrotfish will eat the algae, and if you have enough herbivores eating the algae, they'll clear room for the coral to grow. Conversely, if you fish out the herbivores, if you take too many parrotfish from a reef, you can tip the balance and make it so that algae dominates or takes over a reef and you don't have good coral cover.
Hey, Bryce, Island Primary is wondering how deep you are currently.
Can you ask that one more time, Todd?
Island Primary is wondering how deep you are at this moment.
69 feet.
There you go, 69 feet.
For 10 minutes so far. So right here I've got a computer on my wrist. That computer talks wirelessly to a transmitter on the back of my tank, and it tells me, among other things, how much air is left in my tank, how deep I am, and how long I've been down. This is everything I need to know to dive safely here on the reef.
So why don't you tell us some more about what are the indicators of a healthy reef, Bryce?
Yeah. Well, of course, coral cover is really important, and you're seeing a lot of different coral here. Actually, what's really cool, you guys, is in the Cayman Islands, you have some of the highest coral cover of anywhere in the Caribbean, and you should be proud of that. The Cayman Islands has done a really nice job of managing their resources. And in general, corals are declining in a lot of different places, but the Caymans is one of the bright spots for coral management, so you all should be proud. Now, in addition to coral cover, of course, we need herbivores like we talked about, parrotfish for instance. And on top of all that, it's important that we have large predators. Large predators keep balance on the reef, and they're a really important part of ecosystems. And not surprisingly, one of the most important large predators here in the Caymans and everywhere in the Caribbean are grouper, like the Nassau grouper. Some of the things we haven't talked about, but gets to this whole point of where we are on the reef, are sponges, and they're just cool. Here's an example of a sponge right here.
Bryce, is this a sponge like the sponge you're going to use in your kitchen to clean the dishes?
Yeah, you know, not in a modern context, no. We don't use sponges like this in our sink anymore. But you know what? We did. That's actually how the sponge got its name from our sink. As it used to be that we just take these sponges out of the reef and we dry them And they had this property of being good at scrubbing things, because they kind of had a hard structure to them. So that's how sponges were long ago used in home cleaning, but in a modern context, no.
Bryce, is a sponge a plant?
It is not. A sponge is an animal, but it's a filter feeder. And so a sponge will grow, and it constantly is moving water through the lattices that it builds, and it filters the particles from that water, and that's how it gets its food. There's lots of different kinds of sponges. I think Tom was just showing you why there's more of a tube sponge here.
Yeah, it looks wonderful.
And these sponges are quite common in places like here where the ocean water crashes into a reef, and it brings all that oceanic productivity right here to the edge of the island. And these sponges are here to take advantage of all that food that's coming in.
There's something behind you, Bryce.
Oh. Yeah.
Hey, everybody, do you see what's behind Bryce?
We got a shark here, you guys. I didn't see that. Tails out of it, of course. That's a Caribbean reef shark. That's probably about 4 or 5 feet, maybe.
Beautiful.
We talked a lot about the importance of predators. Well, gosh, that's one right there. We don't have to be worried about sharks like this. They're not going to ever mess with me or any of the divers that are down with me. But they also play an important role in maintaining balance on healthy reefs. It's really cool to see them here. I grew up diving in the Caribbean, and when I was your age, you never saw sharks. Not ever. They were so rare. And nowadays, on any given dive here, a Little Cayman or a Cayman crack, you're probably going to see a Caribbean reef shark like that. And that's a good sign that there's some balance being rebuilt in the healthy coral reefs of this location here in the Cayman Islands.
Bryce, we have a question from CIS. The question is from Nixon, and they're asking, what's the usual size of a baby grouper?
The usual size of a baby grouper. Well, a baby grouper, when it's first created, it starts out as an egg, and that egg is about the size of a pinhead, maybe a millimeter and a half. And after about a month, when it's time to settle out, it's maybe the size of my pinky nail, maybe a little bit bigger. In a year, it's about that big. Not that big.
And do they look the same, or do they look very different when they're young?
They look the same after about 6 months. They start to look. They even have the same barring and patterns. Nassau grouper, anyway. They're just tiny baby versions of the big guys. It's kind of cool.
Amazing.
Speaking of size, I wanted to point out we got Dr. Scott Appel here. And he's actually down with us. He's helping us out with this live feed, but he's also got a stereo video system with him. I know you guys talked about this on the porch chat.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so he's using that to actually capture video of different fish species here on the reefs, and we can use that video to reconstruct, to estimate the sizes of the fish that he's seeing. So we're doing a little bit of science while we're also chatting with you guys.
Now, Bryce, you talked about corals and sponges. Is there any? There's some sort of soft. Are they fans? What are those?
Say one more time, Todd.
So we see the coral, we see the sponges, and then it looks like there's some large fan-like structures. What are those?
Fan-like structures.
Fan, F-A-N. You know, the sea fans that are down there.
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, these are exactly right. These are sea fans. Also another type of animal. These are also filter feeders. Again, these are going to take advantage of that productivity. All of those creatures in the ocean, as they wash up onto the onto the shelf edge, onto the reef. These fans are here waving back and forth, and they use that momentum in order to capture food. So that's another good example of animals on the bottom that are taking advantage of food that's coming in the water from the ocean.
Yeah, Bryce, I'm seeing a lot of these little blue fish with the black on their tail. What are those?
Yeah, so, sorry Tom, it's a little one, but that's a blue chromis. Black on the back, there's two of them right there. Chromis are a type of damselfish. They never get bigger than about that. The damselfish, and chromis in particular, they're plankton pickers, meaning they eat little small animals that are part of the oceanic food chain. So just like the sea fans, they're here taking advantage of all the food that's coming in from the open ocean and washing up on the shelf.
Bryce, I have another question from Island Primary.
Yeah, go ahead.
What part of the reef do grouper usually live in?
Yeah, so they're going to live anywhere when they first settle out. They'll be right up by the shore or in shallow habitat, usually in kind of silty areas and seagrass. And as they get bigger, they go through these shifts in habitat. You guys ready for a big word? Ontogenetic shifts. It means they shift habitats as a function of their life, how big they are, how long they've lived.
So as they get older, they move to different places on the reef.
Exactly, they move deeper. They tend to move deeper. So bigger fish will move further out, and then when they're out here, they're usually about that big or bigger. And the really big ones tend to be found down off the wall, maybe to like 100, 120 feet. But not always, right? A grouper are just like you and me. There's what an average grouper does, but any individual grouper could be different. So sometimes you find big groupers that like shallow habitat. But in general, that's how they work.
Okay, we have another question from Nina at CIS. Would like to know, how do the grouper know it's full moon and time to go to the spag?
Okay, well, the question is, how do they know when to go? Well, they actually have photosensors. Part of the way that their brain is wired is they're pretty good at keeping track of what's happening with light. And the day length matters, and probably the amount of light from the moon matters. And they're able to put all that together, along with, importantly, temperature, to make a decision about when it's time to spawn. But, it is also the case that they learn from each other. When we see them migrate to and from the spawning site, almost always they're going together in a group. And that should make sense, right? Because if you're relying on light, day length, and all that, you probably get it mostly right. But if you see 20 of your closest friends going, now you know you got it right. And so they rely on each other as well. There's a social component where they all decide together to go and where to go in order to reproduce.
That's amazing, Bryce. We have another question from Miss Caroline's class. The question is, do groupers sleep?
Yeah, they do sleep. Fish sleep. It's actually cool. Some fish, they have an adaptation where they can sleep on half their brain and leave the other half on. How about that? Can you imagine? So they can sleep while they're swimming. I don't think Nassau grouper do that. They sleep, but when they do, they tuck themselves up into holes so they can kind of get out of the way of those reef sharks, for instance. A reef shark like that, they're not going to mess with me or Tom or Scott. but they'll definitely mess with a Nassau grouper. A Nassau grouper is a delicious treat to a reef shark. So when they're sleeping, they're going to tuck up underneath a ledge or a hole, find a space where they can be safe. Yeah, and they sleep at night. They're most active right in the morning and right at night. Right as it turns into night. That we call crepuscular, or between day and night on either side. That's when they're most active.
Okay, and we have another question from Miss Caroline, and that's, what is the age of the oldest grouper?
The oldest grouper that we've aged here in the Caymans, aged by the Cayman Islands Department of the Environment, was about 30 years old. Now, is that the oldest Nassau grouper? Oh, assuredly not. Because we've only aged so many.
How do you age a fish?
Yeah, great question. It turns out fish have bones in their ear, just like you and I do. We have bones in our ear, and those bones help them hear. So they're called otoliths. Otoliths. And those bones, if you take them out and you polish them, they have rings, just like tree rings. And you can count those rings on that ear bone, and that tells you how old it is, because each year the fish lays down a new ring. So that's how we age them. Now, it's hard work, so we don't do hundreds and hundreds of them. And also, in order to get an ear bone, you gotta kill the animal. So we try not to do that when we're doing research, right?
Right.
But we know enough to know that a 30-year-old is a pretty old Nassau grouper. Maybe as many as 40 years. Probably not much longer than that, but who knows?
Wonderful. And we have another question from CIS. Grayson wants to know, who can swim faster, a human or a grouper?
Grouper. But you know what? If you ask me who can run faster, a grouper or a human, I'm going to say human. Grouper are better at swimming because that's what they're built to do, just like we're built to walk and run, right? Yeah, great question though.
We have another question from Miss Caroline's class, and that's related to the spawning, which we showed some videos of yesterday, and they're wondering, why do groupers spin around when they're spawning, when they're reproducing?
When they're coming up.
Exactly.
Why do they spin around? Yeah. That's a great question. I don't know if they're doing it intentionally. What they're doing is there's one female grouper that's going up and she's releasing her eggs. And then there are many males that are trying to fertilize through the process of trying to get close to those eggs. They're inadvertently spinning. So I don't know that it's intentional, but it's just a consequence of the way that they're reproducing. But it sure is a pretty magical effect when you see it.
That's so great. The next question from Miss Miranda Gale's class, Savannah wants to know if grouper only spawn at this time.
They do. Yeah, they only spawn in the winter. Well, Nassau grouper only spawn around the full moons in either January or February. Maybe March, possibly April. But in general, only shortly after those full moons. And then the rest of the year, they don't reproduce at all.
Which is why it's so important that we protect this aggregation when they are spawning. It's their one chance.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like literally, exactly, the couple of days of the year when they're reproducing. Why wouldn't we let them reproduce, right? I mean, it makes all the sense in the world.
All right, we have another question. This is from Miss Caroline's class. Oh, and it looks like we're seeing a Nassau right now. Look at that, you guys.
Yeah, this guy's a little one. Look at how cute he is.
Oh.
This guy's maybe 30 centimeters. I bet this one isn't even reproductive yet. I bet he's just about to start heading out to, maybe in a year or two, he'll go to that aggregation site.
What a beautiful fish,
He's a
Bryce.
little guy.
Okay, the question is from Miss Caroline, what is the difference between a Nassau grouper and a tiger grouper?
Okay, different species. Now they look a little different. This guy's so cute. Look at him.
He's just adorable, beautiful fish.
Just checking us out. He's like, I'm not sure about you guys. I mean, I'm not gonna move or anything, but I'm not sure about you. So, yeah, a tiger grouper looks a little bit like a Nassau grouper, but it typically doesn't get quite as big, and they're more obligate piscivores. Ooh, that's fun words right there. It means they tend to be exclusively reliant on eating other fish. Tiger grouper.
Tiger grouper only eat other fish.
Yeah, whereas Nassau grouper, they'll eat lots of different things. They're generalist predators, meaning they'll eat crabs and shrimp and fish, and they'll eat whatever they get their mouths on.
Right.
Tiger grouper is much like that. As a consequence, actually, it's funny, Nassau grouper are easier to catch. Because they're generalist predators, they're happy to eat lots of different things. Tiger groupers are specialists, so you really have to be selective about the type of bait you use to catch tiger grouper. Yeah.
So Mason in Miss Gale's class would like to know, what is the largest grouper you've seen?
Okay, this is the last question and we're going to head up. Largest grouper I've seen?
Yeah.
Probably a Goliath grouper. It was probably 6 feet, 2 meters, maybe 400 pounds. Big boy.
So bigger than you.
Bigger than me, yeah. Those guys get really, really, really big. Not very common. When we see them here on the Cayman Islands, so you guys have Goliath grouper here, but they spawn at different times of the year. And they're the top predators here. Yeah.
Bryce, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. It looks great. Are you going to start heading up now?
Yeah, we're going to head up.
Okay.
Head up, folks. It's great to see you guys. Thanks for the chat down here. We'll see you up top.
One moment, you guys, while I switch cameras. Was that amazing? Oh my gosh. I hope you guys were all able to see that. I saw 2 Nassau out there. We saw that reef shark. That was amazing. While Bryce is getting out of the water, he has to do what's called a safety stop, where he comes up to about 15 feet and he has to wait there for a few minutes to let his body let off the nitrogen gas that builds up in your body when you're diving. So he's going to come join us in a minute. While we're waiting for him, I'm going to go back to your questions here, and if there's anyone else that has questions, if you want to ask them live, classroom up onto the screen with us, and you can go on and do it live, or you can just put them into the chat. So I'm going to go back up the chat here, and it says, Kai did a scientific drawing of a Nassau grouper with Miss Cindy Shaw and wants to know why they have a black spot right before their tail fin. And then the next question is, can you tell us about fish faces? So let's talk that black spot is often called, I think, a saddle patch, and it's on the peduncle. That's what that area is called, and I don't actually know why they have that, but it is, all of them have that black spot right there at the base of their tail fin. And then the next question is, can you tell us about fish faces? And absolutely. So you saw Dr. Scott Happel down there. He had the stereo camera. He was swimming around, and he was taking pictures of the fish to find out how big they are. But we can also take pictures of their patterns on their bodies and on their faces. And it turns out that each Nassau grouper has a unique pattern. Their face, the pattern of their bars and their spots are all unique and different. And so, if we get a picture of one, we can keep that, and then we can find that grouper the next time we see it. And what that's so important for is eventually when we're out here, we don't want to tag fish like we've been doing with the little spaghetti tags. We would like to just be using fish faces to keep track of how many fish are out there, the ones that keep returning and the new ones that are coming in. And that helps us to track the population of this aggregation. And someone else had mentioned earlier, what's the largest spawning site you've seen? That's from Island Primary. And this is the largest spawning site of Nassau grouper that exists in the Caribbean. So you're seeing the footage that we've shown you is absolutely the biggest. Sorry, I'm pulling up a couple of classrooms into the screen so that you guys can see yourselves, because that's fun. Okay, so this is the largest spawning site, and we believe there's more than 8,000 fish out there. Hi, everybody. Hello. Okay, let's do some more questions, shall we? Okay, so the next one. How big are the oldest groupers? And that's Pia wants to know. And I believe that the biggest grouper that we've seen are almost 4 feet and over 30 pounds, maybe 35 to 40 pounds. So that's a pretty big fish, size of maybe a mid-sized dog, yeah? And that's what's hard to show you guys just with the live stream and the cameras. When you're out there on that aggregation, you're surrounded by thousands of fish that are, 3 feet big. They're gigantic, and they're just everywhere. And the size and magnitude is really spectacular. Let's see. So I'm going to just keep reading these questions. Can you tell us which group... Sorry about that, guys. I know that probably hurt everyone's ears. It hurt mine. I fixed that. No problem. Okay, so how can you tell which grouper is a boy and which is a girl? And that's Sophia in 2nd grade at CIS. And that's a great question. You really can't tell the boys from the girls normally when they're out on the aggregation. They all look pretty much when they're out on their home reefs, they all look pretty much the same. But when they come out to the spawning aggregation, we can tell. And that's because the females, their bellies are filled with millions of eggs. And so the females will be swimming around out there with big fat bellies. And so the ones that have those big fat bellies, we know that those are the females, and the rest are the males. That's a wonderful question, Sophia. And the next question is, why does the male grouper surround the female when they are spawning? And that's Marcel. Wonderful question. So the whole idea of having all of those fish out there spawning together is to have as much genetic diversity as possible, so that we have the most potential of having fish survive spawning and come back. And so that's part of it. And the other part, we believe, is that when they're moving like that, it creates a distraction for the predators, like the sharks that are swimming around, so that it's harder for them to be picked off by sharks. Wonderful question, Marcel. Jackson would like to know, where is the largest spawning site? And Miss Gale's class, and we just answered that. That is right here on Little Cayman. Okay, and the next question is, what do grouper usually eat? That's Mila at CIS. And like we said, grouper are not picky eaters. They will eat just about anything. And grouper, if you look closely at the pictures, they have big lips and giant mouths. They're part of the sea bass family. And they can open their mouths quite big. They will literally eat just about anything they can get their mouth around. So fish, crabs, shrimps, anything that it can actually get its mouth around, it's going to eat. Everything is on the menu for a Nassau grouper. Now CIS is asking, and this is Hugo, hi Hugo, how long do they live for? And that's something that's really incredible about Nassau grouper, is they are long-lived fish. Nassau grouper can live up to 30 years or more out in the wild. That's an excellent question. They can live quite a long time. Okay, the next question that I see from John Gray is, why do groupers only reproduce at a certain time of year? So I'm going to actually bring Bryce back on, and he's going to answer that question for you. So Bryce, the question is, why, and this is from John Gray. There's Bryce. Wave everybody. Bryce is back from under the water. Why do they reproduce at a certain time of year?
Hi everybody. Why do they reproduce at a certain time of year? It's a great question. I think the reason we don't know. That's the short answer. And this is part of why we do the science that we do out here, is to try and answer some of these important and interesting questions that we're every year we're trying to figure out more about. That one, I think, they choose to reproduce only once during the year because normally they're solitary and territorial. So they defend territories all around the island. And because of that, there's relatively few individuals for them to choose to reproduce with. So if you had your choice, being able to pick among many different individuals, some that are more fit than others, that are in better shape, it gives you the better opportunity to make good choices for reproduction. And so if they all wait till one time of the year, all individuals get together from all over the place into one location, now you got lots of choices. And when you release your eggs, you've got more chances of all of those eggs getting fertilized because there's lots of males trying to fertilize them at the same time. Yeah, how many, from Miss Caroline's class, how many colors do groupers come in? So for Nassau grouper, we have 4 different types of colors. We have the regular barred color, and that's almost like a tiger color, right? Tiger striping. That's one color, and then we have bicolor, and I like to call that the tuxedo color. That's the color that they get when they're reproducing, on that big night when they're reproducing. We've got dark or black, and they'll get almost all completely black color. Typically, the females will have that big black color when they're about to release their eggs. And then finally, white belly, and that's when they're almost all white. They'll have maybe a little bit of barring on the top on their backs, but otherwise they're all white. And they'll usually go into that color when they're up in the water column and they're trying to blend in with the light coming down from the surface, or maybe if they're down on the sand, they'll go all white. It's almost like a camouflage. Yeah, so those are the main colors that they get. Okay, next question is, why do the groupers swim up as they spawn? Claire, great question. They, normally they're down right on the bottom, and that's a good place to be if you're trying to eat shrimp or crabs or other fish. If you want to produce babies, eggs and ultimately babies, that for the first month of their life they're living up in the water column, and they're relying on food that's floating up in the water column, and also you don't want to get eaten by those creatures like the blue chromis that we saw down there. They'll eat those eggs. You want to put your eggs up away from those creatures that'll eat the eggs, and also into water where there's food for them once they turn into baby fish and they start swimming around. Yeah, great question. Okay, what diseases can grouper have? Man, that's a great question. I don't really know I think a lot of people don't know the answer to this because there's not a lot of science done on wild diseases in fish. There's a lot of research done on diseases in fish in, for instance, hatcheries. And wouldn't you know it, grouper are a very common species that's grown in hatcheries. Not Nassau grouper, at least not yet, although there are groups trying to figure out how to raise Nassau grouper in captivity. But if you've ever had, for instance, barramundi at a fancy restaurant, maybe some of you have, and it sounds delicious, and they might even say, oh, local barramundi, you should have some, it's fresh. First of all, it's not local, not around here. It's actually from the Pacific, but they grow barramundi in hatcheries. And so there's a lot of research on diseases in hatcheries because it makes a big difference to how many fish you can produce and how much money you can make. In in the Caymans, we often see grouper at that aggregation site that have some form of diseases. Like just last year, we saw what looked like fungal patches on a lot of the fish. That's just a guess. And there were lots of individuals in the population being affected by it, but we don't know what it is. But it's a thing. It's a thing that we have to, I imagine, is part of population control, especially when they're all getting together in a small location where you can pass diseases from individual to individual.
And maybe when you become a scientist, you can come out and start researching that, right? Because we're hoping that some of you guys are going to become the next generation of researchers that are going to be out here, protecting the coral reef and this amazing aggregation.
Yeah, you guys, there is so much science left to be figured out here. I mean, every year we learn something new, and we also learn that there's so much more questions than we have answers. And you guys, a lot of the questions you've asked today are examples of that. Like this is a great one. Diseases, how many are there? Who knows?
Right.
Let's figure it out. Yeah. What's next?
How long do Nassau sleep for?
How long do Nassau groupers sleep for? But let's file that under the who knows. That's a great question. Based on activity from our tagging work, we do know that they do go very inactive. One might almost say dormant. They stop moving. They stop wandering around the reef. They get up underneath the ledges, and they do that for almost the whole night when it's dark. As soon as the light starts to break, as soon as it starts to get a little bit light where they can start to see, they'll start moving again. Now, are they sleeping that whole time? We don't know. But they sure are inactive and probably at least resting over that whole window of time. Yeah.
How many grouper do you see a day?
When we're at the spawning site, on any given dive, we'll see many thousands of grouper. Many thousands of grouper. Now, when they're not spawning, we won't see nearly that many. On a big, healthy population that's around the reefs of, let's say, Little Cayman and Cayman Brack, it is not uncommon to see 2 to 5 Nassau grouper on the course of a dive. Some small, some quite big. But not much more than that. And the reason why is because they're territorial. They carve out a spot.
Right.
That's their spot. They don't like others to be in it because that's their food, their habitat, their sleeping spots.
If another one came up to them on their home reef, they would actually push them out.
They'll chase them away.
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to really be super aggressive, but if you're a Nassau grouper and somebody's chasing you that's big, and you're going to give them their territory back. Yeah.
Wonderful. Miss Caroline's class wants to know, do the adult grouper protect their eggs once they've spawned?
They do not.
So what happens?
Yeah, they release those eggs, and then that's that as far as the moms are concerned. They're done. The eggs go about their way. A given a big mom female will produce several million eggs. And how many of those eggs need to survive in order to replace a population? 1. Yeah, over a female's lifetime, I'd like to add. So, any million of eggs, you're lucky if 1 survives. So they play the odds, and because of that, they don't have to protect those eggs. They're not like us where we have 1 baby and we really protect it, right? Their strategy is they produce millions of eggs and they hope that at least 1 or 2 survive.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to give you back to Todd.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. That was wonderful. You guys, give Bryce a wave. Thank you so much for doing that. That is all. Oh, I'm all disheveled. Hold on. Camera ready. Okay. That's all the time that we have for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing the underwater live stream. If you ended up showing up a bit later today, no worries. This live stream is going to be is immediately archived on Reef's YouTube page, which you can access from the blog, and I'll also email your teachers with the link for the live streams from all of the live streams this week. In case you missed one and you want to watch it, they're all there for you. Let's see. Oh, there's another question from Cayman International School. Do Nassau keep growing their whole life? And I believe they They do, absolutely. I'm getting the thumbs up from Dr. Scott Happel that they continue to grow their entire life. And they can continue to reproduce their entire life, all the way until the end of their life. We have another question from Miss Caroline. Do other grouper attack the Nassau grouper? Do other grouper attack the Nassau grouper? I mean, they do. That has been heard of. I did not know that, but yes, they do. So thank you, Miss Caroline. Thank you for that question. Thanks all of you guys for being here. I'm going to pull some of you up onto the screen so you can wave and say hi to everybody out there across the internet and here with us. Thanks everyone for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. We appreciate you all, and we hope to see you guys here next year for Grouper Moon. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day, you guys. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.